economic disparities. The numbers are sobering. For example, in its 2011 edition of The World's Billionaires, Forbes magazine lists only one African-American billionaire in North America. Only 6 African-American executives currently lead a Fortune 500 company, and only 5 others have ever done so. Our speaker today, Dr. George Fraser, is one of the most influential voices in America sounding the call for African Americans to use their collective strength in collaborative ways to expand and accelerate minority economic empowerment. 24 years ago, on the cutting edge of this movement, Dr. Fraser founded FraserNet, which today has grown into a global leadership network of 60,000 black professionals, business owners, and community leaders. Dr. Fraser is the author of 2 books, Success Runs in Our Race, The Complete Guide to Effective Networking in the African American Community, which is a critically acclaimed bestseller, and Race for Success, The 10 Best Business Opportunities for Blacks in America. Dr. Fraser's business empire includes publishing the award-winning Success Guide Worldwide, the Networking Guide to Black Resources, and the highly successful annual Power Networking Conference, which is the largest gathering of black professionals, business owners, and community leaders. He is a highly sought-after and popular speaker and commentator, including on CNN and in the Wall Street Journal. Dr. Fraser's accomplishments are great, though his beginnings were very humble. He was born in Brooklyn, New York, into a family of 11 children, and he was orphaned at the age of 3. He spent 14 years in foster homes and growing up on the streets of New York, where he could have scarcely imagined the success that he has experienced. Dr. Fraser's career has included leadership positions with Procter & Gamble, United Way, and Ford Motor Company. Upscale magazine named him one of the top 50 power brokers in Black America, and he was recently inducted into the Minority Business Hall of Fame and Museum. It is a pleasure to welcome to the City Club of Cleveland, Dr. George Fraser.
Good afternoon, and a special thanks to the City Club and to Jim Foster, my friend, for this very special opportunity and this very powerful pulpit and podium. I'm often asked as a speaker, do I get nervous before I speak? And I explain to people that the interesting thing about speaking is the greatest fear the human has is the fear of speaking. It is greater than the fear of dying. So the number 1 fear is the fear of speaking. The number 2 fear is the fear of dying. And the number 3 fear is the fear of speaking and dying in front of an audience. I will not die, I hope, in front of this audience. I stand before you this afternoon not as an academician, a theorist, a scholar, for which this forum is so well known, but as an ordinary citizen who has failed and then recovered, who has succeeded, then served. One who has changed before change was demanded of me, realizing early in life that the responsibility for change lies within me. I discovered my immense will to thrive when I realized that the meaning of my life was the one that I had chosen for it. And I had several lives or paths to choose from. Without help and support, I could have easily been a victim of my circumstances like so many black children are today. And here is how my life played out, very quickly. My father came to this country in the early 1900s from Guyana. A beautiful black man married a fair-skinned sister, Ida Mae Baldwin, from Lumpkin, Georgia, and they moved to Brooklyn, New York, and Bedford-Stuyvesant. Because in the early 1900s, Dad could not get a good education and get a good job in America, he was relegated to driving a New York City cab for 40 years of his life. At 3 years old, my mother became mentally ill. There were 11 of us, 8 boys and 3 girls. She was ultimately institutionalized. And so I was put into an orphanage along with all of my other siblings, stayed in an orphanage from 3 to 5 years old, and then because no one would take 11 children, we were broken up into 3s and then put into foster homes. And I spent the balance of my young life until I aged out of foster homes, 17 years old, growing up on the mean streets and drug-infested streets of Brooklyn, New York. I was put out into the world armed with a vocational diploma in woodworking because no one thought that I was college material. I had some help, but there were certainly low expectations for a young black man at that moment in time. What I also had growing up in New York, in spite of my depressing circumstances, I had Malcolm X speaking to me in one ear and Dr. King speaking to me in the other ear, and Smokey Robinson writing the lyrics to the music that I listened to instead of Lil Wayne, NWA, and Ice Cube. What I did have were family values, role models, leadership, good old-fashioned discipline, and those of you who look like me know what I'm talking about. I had work ethic. I had recycled clothes, cardboard in my shoes, and I understood the importance of money because I had no money. In other words, I had hope. I had a future if I chose one. I chose a future. I chose a business career. And it required the use of everything I did have and to remember everything I didn't have. The climb that led me into the Minority Business Hall of Fame and Museum this year was slow, painful, but awesomely rewarding. Now, this is where my story takes a very sharp curve down a slippery slope into a dark tunnel. You see, for the past 25 years, my company, FraserNet, has been engaged in social entrepreneurship. Our goal is to make a profit and then to reinvest that profit back into our community to make a difference in our community. We are a global leadership network of 60,000 top black professionals, business owners, and community leaders, and we are committed to economic development through education, training, and empowerment for black people. Our focus is to train and to educate and to equip black people with new skills, new thinking, and new approaches for personal, professional, and financial success in the 21st century. We have two very simple goals, and we've been working on these goals for 25 years. Number one, to help black people build wealth that can be transferred intergenerationally. That is not that we do not have wealth. We are not poor. We're just broke. We're nearly a $1 trillion annual economy. That's what we bring to the table of America. But our money goes in one direction, away from us, and we're some of America's most conspicuous consumers. There was an interesting article in USA Today on the front page below the fold speaking about black people and their money. And here's what it said. It said that baby boomers, black baby boomers, will be the first generation of Africans in America to raise another generation of Africans in America that will not do better than them. So in the 400-year history that we have been in this country, we are the only generation to raise another generation that will be worse off. That cannot happen. We must fix that. The second goal of FraserNet is to help black people become the #1 employer of black people in the 21st century. That we must move from an old mantra in our family, get a good education and get a good job, to a new mantra of get a good education and to create a job. That we must create work and jobs for our people because that is the only way to raise up the poor. That we ultimately, before the end of the century, and you know, I didn't say in the next 5 years, I didn't say in the next 10 years, I didn't even say within my generation. Within the next century, because I believe it will take 3 to 5 more generations to achieve this goal, we ultimately must become the #1 employer of our own people. We will use effective networking techniques as the infrastructure for achieving these goals. So, the question is, how is it going? Well, I report to you today that after 25 years, 2,000 speeches, 3 best-selling books, producing over 200 workshops, seminars, national conferences, 450 radio and television interviews, 4 million air miles, thousands of hotel room nights, the state of our condition, from my perspective, metaphorically, is this. Black people are driving a luxury car. We are rolling on 4 tires, but each of those tires have leaks, including the spare. And our transmission is broke, and we are temporarily stuck in reverse. We are in the South, There is no more cotton to pick, so now what? While many of us are doing fine and doing all the right things, most of us are not. And I'm angry about this. If Dr. King were to magically reappear and to assess our progress since his death 43 years ago, he would be very pleased that President Obama occupies the White House. He essentially predicted it. But he would be very frustrated, as I am, about almost everything else, especially our economic progress, which was one of his main goals beyond his civil rights goals for black people. But the history of injustice has left a legacy for us that finds African Americans represented disproportionately in high numbers in almost every significant social statistic in this country. Proportionately, blacks are the most unemployed, the most incarcerated, the most impoverished, and therefore we are the most vulnerable to schemes, both religious schemes, political schemes, and economic schemes that appear to offer us relief. Blacks in Texas alone, for example, spend $1.1 billion a year on lottery tickets, hoping for economic deliverance. The statistics are harrowing. 70% of our children are born out of wedlock. There is a moral and family crisis in our community. 50% of our children drop out of high school. Could you imagine a black man growing up in America in the 21st century without a high school diploma? Where will he be going? To jail. We have the lowest SAT scores for the 10th year in a row. There are more black men in prison than were enslaved in 1850. There are extraordinarily high disparities between white and black median income, net worth, home and business ownership. We have a shrinking black middle class, partly because of the economy and partly because of the financial illiteracy, bad choices, and the economic leakage in our community. Our consumption habits are partly to blame. We are oversubscribed in debt. We are undersubscribed in credit. We have little equity and ownership in the business of America, and the business of America, in case no one has told you, is business. And it has put us on a track, quite frankly, to help us re-enslave ourselves. This is simply madness. When America catches a cold, black people catch pneumonia. And if these statistics were spread evenly across all Americans, there would be anarchy. In fact, today, just a shrinking middle class and the raping and pillaging of our economy has produced the Occupy Wall Street movement and the Tea Party movement. The one thing I admire about both movements is that they got angry and they did something about it, whether you agree with them or not. Black people are better, stronger, and more creative and resourceful than our negative statistics articulate. We overcame 350 years of slavery, against civil rights and voting rights, and choked the death out of Jim Crow and public access because we got sick and tired and fed up of being used and tricked and bamboozled. We got angry. But we appear, from my perspective, to be okay, or at least complacent, about these devastating statistics that will lead to a weaker America and a permanent second-class citizenship for black people and brown people in America. You see, I deeply believe that everything begins with words. And through words, you raise consciousness. From consciousness, you gain passion. And from passion, there is action, and from action, there is change. What do we know about change? We know that you will never change that which you tolerate, and you will only change when you get angry. Malcolm X was angry. Dr. King was angry. Mandela was angry. Cesar Chavez was angry. Chief Joseph was angry. Gandhi was angry. Mother Teresa was angry. W.E.B. Du Bois, who spoke here, was angry. In fact, Du Bois was so angry with America, he left America, never to return. He died in Ghana. But what I am talking about, so that you do not misunderstand me, is a positive anger directed towards positive change. Yes, I am angry. I'm most angry with myself because I could have done more and must do more. And I'm doing a lot. So you know I am angry with those who can do more, who look like me, who are not doing what they can do. I have been working in the vineyards for 25 years. I've been exposed to the good, the bad, and the ugly in our community. And yes, there are plenty of good and worthy and church and organizational and kitchen table work being done, but they too struggle for funding, they struggle for participation. At the moment, the bad and the ugly has reared its head in our community, and it's now time to get angry, to change, and to chop it off. We are, or are we so busy living the dream that we have given up fighting for the dream? Or do we expect government to fix this? Does the government have a role in our lives? Of course. We pay taxes and we expect a return on our investment like everybody else in this country. But today, with the political confusion as it is in government, government will be icing on the cake. It will not be the cake. We are the cake. Black people are the cake. And the responsibility for change lies within us. How long are we going to sit around asking others to do for us that which we are not doing for ourselves? My father taught me many years ago, what you do speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you say. What are we doing? If Black America is to survive, and there is no assurance, here are the 7 key things to fixing what I believe are our economic and social problems. Number 1, we must rebuild the black family. Every major problem in the black community, including poor education, massive unemployment, senseless violence, hyper-incarceration, low spirituality, low-quality housing options, high mortality rates, can be traced to the disintegration of the black family. No community or culture can exist or thrive and contribute and build economic strength without the family. There is a huge ecosystem in place to strengthen our families. There have been more books and white papers and suggestions and thoughts and ideas on how to do that. Just Google it. Our churches will have to continue to play a key role. We need basic training for couples and newlyweds. We need basic training for financial literacy. We need job creation and development strategies, and we need role models. All of this is available within the context of our community. As I travel around the country, there are endless initiatives dealing with the black family right in our own community. But it is an extraordinarily difficult thing to get the kind of participation in those programs that are necessary. I am very concerned about black women. The percentage of black women who are married declined from 62% to 31% between 1950 and 2002. 42% of black women have never married. And 70% of all black families were headed by a household in 1963. In 2002, only 48%. I am very concerned about our family structure. It is exacerbated by the very high rates of incarceration. That is exacerbated by a less than stellar record of our urban education system. So that's number one. We must work on building the black family, rebuilding the black family. The second thing is we must provide boys in our community with strong, positive black men as mentors, role models, and particularly a connection to their fathers. And black boys, like other children, will imitate and become what they see, and it is critical that black children see strong and positive black men. That is not what they see on television. I have advocated for 20 years that every black person must take responsibility for raising at least one black child other than their own, with a special emphasis on black boys. I'm assuming that you're doing right by your own children, but that is not enough. The question that many of them have is, what child might that be? It could probably be somebody in your own family. All of us have a knucklehead brother or sister with some knucklehead nieces and nephews. Take responsibility for them. Take responsibility and see them through in and out of high school minimally, and in and out of college. So we must take responsibility for our children. Susan Taylor was here last night. She started the National Cares Mentoring Movement because we do not have enough black people mentoring our own children. There are more white people, according to Susan, mentoring black children than black people. That is not acceptable. 60% of the black workforce in America are in executive, 9 million of us, executive, managerial, supervisory, professional specialty, vocational, technical, administrative, sales, and business ownership positions. That is an army of potential role models and mentors to help those who are stuck in the cycle of poverty. In fact, there is no army in the entire world larger than the army of black people that have succeeded in this country. So we have the potential to mentor our own children, but we don't. Number three, we must control the negative peer culture and electronic media that mold many black boys and men into violent, irresponsible, and uncaring human beings and molds us into consumers. Either black people will control the media that they consume or the media will control them. We must turn off the television. The average black family watches 70 hours of television a week. That's 10 hours a day. That's madness. Read. Invest in personal growth and development, and there are endless examples of personal growth and development opportunities, workshops, seminars, and conferences in our community. But all of these organizations putting on these workshops struggle, for funding and struggle to get people to come. I've been at this for 25 years. And if it were not for corporate and institutional sponsors, we could not put on our SuccessNet event. We celebrated the 90th one last night. And we struggle to get people to come, to learn and to grow. I'm recommending that we invest at least 2% of our annual income in personal growth and development, to include reading, workshops, seminars. Number four, understand for the rest of our existence, black people will live in a STEM world, a world based on science, technology, engineering, math, and medicine. And if we are to survive, it will be because we understand and master STEM, and we must teach black children accordingly. 60% of black fourth graders today cannot read at grade level. They're headed for jail. They're building prisons and prison cells based on that number. 60% of us cannot read at grade level in the fourth grade. So the next real emphasis in our schools must be on reading and math. Reading and math. If your child cannot read at a fourth grade level, and you do not know this, shame on you. You need your behind kicked, and you need to do whatever you need to do by any means necessary to make sure your child can read in the 21st century. We must do that. Number 5, control our economic fate by mastering the principles of networking, entrepreneurship, because we do not lack opportunity. This is the greatest country in the world. I've traveled all over the world. I've been every place that black people have been dispersed, to South Africa, East Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, North Africa, all over South America, and all over the Caribbean. There are no black people in the entire world doing better than we are. In fact, we are the beacon of hope for every single person of African descent in the entire world. So we do not lack opportunity in this great country. What we lack as business people is capacity. There's unlimited opportunity. So the 21st century for us has to be about building our capacity to take advantage of the unlimited opportunities. We must control business and management and understand finance and accounting and manufacturing and saving and investing and banking and tithing. We must teach these principles to our children, which means we must have a cultural change in our community. We must change the kitchen table conversation in our community. It is no longer important what Beyonce is going to wear to the BET Awards. It is no longer important what is happening on Basketball Wives. That is not what is important. What is important is what did you read today? How are your grades? Have you started a savings account? That's what is important. So we must change the kitchen conversation. We must change and live by a new mantra of living below our means and investing the rest, which means we must engage in financial literacy in our community. We are a financially illiterate people, as evidence of what we do with our $1 trillion that we bring to the table in a single year. We must recycle our dollars. Extraordinarily important. We insist that institutional and corporate America, through set-asides, affirmative action, supplier diversity, we insist that you support and utilize our businesses, and we don't even do it ourselves. We don't even support our own businesses, but we insist that you do. There's something not right about that. We must recycle our talent. This is huge. We must recycle our talent. Now, this is a deep issue. I speak in about 25 historically black colleges a year. What would happen if the best and brightest high school athletic talent went to historically black colleges instead of Penn State with a $70 million football program? And we are 59% of the Penn State football team. What would happen if all of that talent went to historically black colleges? You see, money and television and contracts follow talent. But most of our talent, our high potential athletic talent, goes someplace else other than their own colleges. And therefore, within the next 10 years, a third of historically black colleges will have to close. That is economic leakage. Imagine a black America where professional athletes and entertainers recycle their hundreds of millions of dollars annually in developing homes and businesses in their own community. Imagine a black community where our professional athletes and entertainers utilize the services of black lawyers and black sports agents and financial advisors and CPAs. We do not. Imagine a black community where our professional athletes and entertainers were tithing and building first-class educational and sports facilities on black college campuses. We do not. Imagine a black community where our professional athletes and entertainers became lifetime members of organizations like the NAACP or the Urban League or SCLC. Imagine that. And imagine thousands of black athletes and entertainers who build successful businesses, who employ thousands of people, who make a profit and make a difference, who do well while doing good. Imagine another 100 Magic Johnsons in our community, who since his fame in basketball has put himself in a position to start and to build businesses that employ thousands of his own people. Imagine that. The final thing that I think that we must focus on is not excellence, amazingness. My parents taught me when I was growing up that we were going to have to be twice as good to get half as much. They were right then, and they're still right. And I'm here to say to my brothers and sisters that today being good is not good enough. Today you have to be amazing. Amazing. Barack Hussein Obama, now think of that name, Barack Hussein Obama, went up against the Clintons, an inexperienced politician. He won, not because he was good. He was amazing. 2 years ago, I went to AT&T and I bought a Motorola cell phone. It was very good. Last year, I took that cell phone, threw it in the garbage so that I could buy an iPhone because it's amazing. We are throwing very good away. And we're trading it in for amazing. We must become amazing. We have models for amazing in our community. We can do more than sing and dance, play football, baseball, and basketball. And absolutely, we are amazing on the playing field. There's no question about that. We have changed basketball. We have changed football. So we must change in other ways. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.